All right. I hope we are streaming live on Facebook.
Hey, everybody.
This is our very first time doing a Zoom meeting on Facebook. So we're hoping that we're going live.
We have Joe over there checking it out for us. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to assume that we are live.
I think we're live.
There we go. We are live. All right.
Excellent. And we are really super excited that we have two amazing guests with us today. First, today we have Todd Siebert. Hi, Todd. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Oh, we can't
hear me?
Can't hear him.
He can't hear us, I don't think.
All right.
So, while we're working that out, one of the things that we love and hate about all this technology is that it allows us to do amazing things like this, like bring somebody else to talk to you about an important subject. But it also, it's new. We're trying something new and there we go. Let's see if it's working.
Yeah, let's say hi again. Can you say hi, Todd? Let's see.
Can you hear us, Todd?
We've got your audio this
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right, there we go. All right.
We are working.
We are working.
Real.
We are.
All right, love it. I love it. So again, thank you so much. Todd is, this is Todd Siebert. He is one of the regional managers at Spartan Chemical. And we are super excited. We've got two great guests on the show today on the community forum. First one is going to be talking, Todd's going to be talking to us about disinfecting and sanitizing your store. And we've got a lot of great information that we want to cover today. And then later on in the show, we're going to have somebody, Dr. Linda Lee, coming in from a company that does UV lighting, sanitizing and sterilizing. And so they're going to be talking to us about that. So we're really excited for the show today, and welcome, Todd. We're really excited to have you. And I'd love for you to just start out a little bit by talking about Spartan Chemical and telling us about Spartan Chemical and who you are and what you do.
Sure. So Spartan Chemical is a family-owned business. We're worldwide. All of our manufacturing takes place in Ohio, and we work through distribution. I've been with the company for 32 years, and I worked in the industry a few years before that as well. So about 35 years in the professional cleaning industry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The Spartan Chemicals, you said, is a family-owned company. Is that right? You told me
yes,
that?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. So not only is your stuff manufactured here in the United States in Ohio, but you're a family-owned company like many of the store owners and business owners that are going to be on our community forum today. So when you told me that, I thought it was pretty cool. And so I have a couple of questions for you, and I am certainly excited to get questions from our group and see what's going on. Hey guys, just as an FYI, because of this more interactive format that we've got going on today, normally on our community forums, you'll see me personally responding to your questions, but I'm not doing that today. We do have Aubrey on the line, and she is grabbing all your questions, and so I will be getting them. But if you just don't see me commenting and typing like I normally do on our community forums, that's why. So so we do already have a couple of questions that have come in, Todd, which is really exciting. But my first question that I wanted to talk to you about was just, the coronavirus in general. And what you can tell us about what you know about this virus, how long does it last on surfaces, and just kind of give us some general information from the actual industry. Like we're getting lots of
anecdotal
evidence, like Facebook memes and stuff like that. But like, what's the real skinny? What's the real story?
So we have a motto at Spartan of keeping things simple, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about your partners, probably most of their stores have been closed.
Yes.
We are working from a guideline of 7 days. If your store is closed for 7 days, then what we need to focus on is cleaning. Everybody pretty much agrees that if that building is dormant for 7 days, if there was viruses in that facility, they would be dead.
Okay.
So our focus is cleaning. We break down facilities into 2 categories. One is a community facility, which would be pretty much what we're talking about today,
Yep.
versus
Places that are open to the community,
yes,
like a store.
yes, versus a controlled environment. So
Uh-huh.
controlled environment is healthcare. Outside of healthcare, we cannot manage that facility in terms of a level of cleanliness like they do in healthcare.
Sure.
So we need to kind of get that out of our mind a little bit. Not saying that we shouldn't use disinfectants and clean, obviously, but cleaning is really what's most important. And so going back into that facility to, quote, prepare it for reopening, cleaning is what we want to focus on. When I use the term cleaning, I'm talking general purpose cleaners.
Okay. So you talked about disinfecting and you talked about cleaning just there. So can you give us a little rundown on the difference between
Sure.
cleaning
Yep.
and disinfecting?
So when we use the term disinfecting, we are claiming to kill 100% of viruses and bugs in an environment. Okay. Most of the community environments that we're dealing with, it really would be virtually impossible to, quote, disinfect that environment. And that's why we separate the two between the community and the controlled. In a controlled environment, those environments are built to be disinfected. And so it's a lot easier and more achievable.
Okay.
So when we talk about disinfecting, like I said, it's 100% kill. Cleaning is the physical removal of organic soil load. So with that removal of the soil, we would also be removing germs. We're not necessarily focusing on killing the germ. It's more about cleaning and physically removing that environmental soil load.
Okay, so
I love that. I have never heard that. I've never heard environmental soil load before. So I mean, Todd, you're making me smarter by the second here.
Wow. And I'm making them up as we go. So
there you go. That's awesome.
that's good. That's funny.
When I talk to people, how is the environmental soil load in this store today? You know, we'll be able to go there. That's great.
So is what you're saying then that that there are times, like if you're a store owner, there's times to be focused on cleaning versus disinfecting. Now, and the other thing you said with disinfecting that I want to ask about is 100% of the virus is killed.
correct.
So like a lot of times you see, you know, like Lysol spray in the grocery store or whatever, and it says 99% effective.
Right. So that's, in our world, we call that sanitizing.
Okay.
Okay.
So there's cleaning, there's sanitizing, and there's disinfecting.
Correct.
Ah, okay.
So when we think, you know, so again, thinking from the perspective of, you know, somebody who has a pet store or something like that. I mean, sanitizing is really sort of an out of reach goal. Disinfecting. I'm sorry. That's right. The organic soil load, just sort of try to keep that in my brain here. So disinfecting is really what you're looking for, like in an operating room. So, but if you have a pet store, just sanitizing is probably where an independent store is trying to get, you know, really, really minimizing, but not eliminating risk. Would that be a safe statement?
Yeah. What we say is when we're sanitizing, we're reducing the load of bacteria in that environment to a safe, manageable level. We're not 100% removing it.
Yeah. So would there be a time for an independent retailer that disinfecting, like the 100% thing or places where that disinfecting level would be appropriate, or is it just not ever really appropriate to think about getting to that level for a store?
Or possible.
Yeah, or
Right.
possible.
So keeping it simple, we want to break it down to high touch points.
Okay.
Right.
Germs are hitchhikers. So they don't, they don't crawl up your leg off the floor. They are on a surface.
No, because otherwise I'd be creeped out.
A little bit creepy. So germs are on high touch points, doorknobs, countertops. In a bathroom environment, it's the flush valve, the paper towel dispenser, all those high touch points. What the people want to do is identify those spots within your environment, and that's where your focus is.
Okay.
So throughout the day, it would be overkill to use a disinfectant nonstop all day long.
And maybe not even safe for the employees because they're so strong a disinfectant?
Correct. So we want to talk about a product that's going to be on our list called Sanitize, simple name. And that's a product that can be used throughout the day, does not require any PPE, which is personal protective equipment, like gloves and goggles. It's something that anybody could grab, use the product, and not be afraid of damaging a surface or, be unhealthy to the person using it.
Great.
So that's your throughout the day product. And then either maybe, midday or at the end of a shift of employees, maybe somebody walks around and does that same touch surface area with a disinfectant cleaner.
Okay.
That's interesting. So it's a combination of disinfectant and sanitizing and sort of rotating them through. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
God.
So disinfectants, without getting too technical, have what's called a parts per million, and that's the amount of active ingredient in the product. So a disinfectant is going to have a lot more parts per million than a sanitizer.
It's going to be a lot stronger in
Right.
layman terms.
And those parts per million are going to build up on a surface if you just continue to use a disinfectant over and over and over again on a surface. You're actually going to create a sticky, tacky environment, which will actually attract soil to that surface.
And possibly germs.
Along with germs, of course.
Ew.
So the organic soil load is going to go way up.
Way up.
All right, I know that we're going to have that organic soil load is going to be a
I can't wait.
a buzzword around the Nagin household.
I can't wait to throw that into the podcast tomorrow.
Boys, the organic soil load in your rooms is really getting high.
The other rule of thumb that I like to mention is if you have a visible soil load, you should remove that first before asking the disinfectant to work. At the end of the day, the cleaning is what matters, right? So if we see a visible soil load, it's really more important to clean that soil off that surface than to grab a disinfectant and expect it to do all the work. Disinfectants have limitations. Some are effective in a higher soil load, some are not. So if you visibly see soil, you should remove that soil.
Okay.
Got it.
Good. So we have a couple of really good questions from our viewers right now. This one, question's from Julie, and she says, Todd, can I believe a container like 409, for example, grocery store brand, common brand that you get in the grocery store that says kills 99% of bacteria and virus? How do I know that's true? It's a well-known brand name. I tend to think I can use it. Is that true? What's the difference between products like the ones you sell and like 409 or other Lysol or whatever?
Supermarket brands.
Yeah.
Right. So the EPA governs all disinfectant and sanitizers. When you apply for registration on a product, you submit that label along with your claims of what that product can do. That is controlled, and once that product is approved, that is the label that goes on the container. So there's if you change any of that, you have to start over.
You have to reapply.
That's correct.
Okay.
So the EPA gives us that validity, if you will. So what you really want to look for is an EPA registration number, because that is required on the label.
Okay. So that's how you would know if those claims are true.
Correct.
Okay.
But I mean, the good news is one of the things that I was afraid of is that you were going to come on and say, oh my God, no, all those products are crap and they're not really doing the job. So what you're saying is that if it says 99.9%, it's doing a pretty good job. Am I hearing that correctly?
It's doing a 99.9% good job.
Okay.
On the claims that are listed on the label. So not all of this
claims that are listed on the label. So okay.
Explain
Keep
farther.
talking.
Yeah.
Keep talking.
So you could line up 10 different sanitizers or disinfectants, and they all are, quote, sanitizers or disinfectants, but they're not all equal. So you could build a product for a specific market, and you're only going to maybe go for claims that are pertinent to that market. A vet clinic would be a good example. You're going to build a product and have something like a parvo claim, whereas on the street, necessarily at a store, parvo claim isn't maybe very important to you, so you don't need that claim. So you could have two different products that kind of read the same, and again, we always put those in big letters, right? The 99.9% and all that.
Sure.
And what I see over the years is what I call a false sense of security. As soon as the consumer reads disinfectant or sanitizer, they stop reading. And they're like, hey, I got my product, let's go do the job, without realizing, hey, maybe this product is not very good or as effective if I got a higher soil load versus a relatively clean environment like a doctor's office. That's pretty easy to clean and disinfect in there when the soil load's not that high. But you go next door, maybe you got a manufacturing facility
or a restaurant or something,
or a restaurant where you have a much higher soil load.
Yep. Soil load. I love it. There's your favorite word again.
I wasn't going to go there again.
I know, but I had to.
It was too long.
He was aching to go there, though.
Yeah. So Marie has a really interesting follow-up question to this, not regarding grocery store products, but she says, what about bleach? A bleach solution in a spray bottle. Will that work? And what are the pluses and minuses to bleach?
So to not throw stones at other products, but bleach is kind of the Kool-Aid of disinfecting.
Okay.
You hear that recommendation from the CDC to the local health departments. Go online and do your research. There's lots of websites out there that will tell you all the negatives of bleach. It's an oxidizer. It's a high pH. It's going to ruin clothing. It's not good on surfaces. Mm-hmm. But the number one negative of bleach for what we're talking about is bleach cannot hold up to a soil load.
Okay.
So
like
bleach,
if there's any like dirty fingerprints or whatever.
Right. So bleach is effective as a sanitizer on a pre-clean surface.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But
I
think that you've hit it on the head with some of the problems with bleach, though. It can mar your surfaces and take color out and all kinds of things that.
Sure.
Yeah. I think one of the things that Marie said is all the other stuff is sold out. I can't get the other stuff at the grocery store.
So I think what we should do is we should talk about fabric, because that's been asked a couple times, and then, show where it's available.
Yeah. So what about fabric? Do you know anything about sanitizing fabric or disinfecting fabric or cleaning fabric?
We have a lot of, it was asked, one of these questions was asked by a coach, one of our coaches who works with quilt stores and boutiques. this is a big, well, I should look here. This is, the big question. If people come into your boutique, your women's clothing store, and try on a dress or try on a scarf, what is an acceptable protocol to make sure that, that item is safe for someone else to try on?
Or maybe that's not your area of
Yeah,
expertise.
if you're not, oh, that's fine too, of course.
Yeah, so in our product lineup, we do not have any products that make any kind of fabric claims. The EPA is kind of fuzzy on that. They technically say that unless you can laundry that fabric, then you cannot disinfect it. So like a carpeting, you cannot disinfect a carpeting. There's just too much surface there to reach with a product, too many places for the bugs to hide, if you will.
Right.
In terms of
high organic soil load, I'm sure.
Very high, very high. But so clothing, the natural process of disinfecting that is laundry.
Yeah.
Right.
I think a lot of people have talked about steaming as and raising the temperature of the fabric using steam as a really effective sanitizer for fabrics, including things like yarn and bolts of fabric and the curtains in your dressing room and all those things.
Yeah.
So
And I think probably your stores would have those steamers, and that would definitely be a go-to application for those types of surfaces.
good.
The fabric.
Right.
Great. So Julie has a question again. And Summer, same question. Who makes Sanitize? And we want to know where to purchase this stuff. So excellent segue, because I do want you to know that after I started talking with Todd, I'm like, everybody's going to want this stuff. He's like, okay, how about if I set up a special page for you? And I'm going to share my screen here just a second, guys. And
because there were two questions that were asked. I can't find anything, I can't get anything.
Yeah.
So we're super happy to be able to, to share you with, with our community. That this is great.
yep.
Susan got off the phone the first time she talked with you, and she was like, "This is great.
He's got the answers that we need.
He knows what he's talking about, and he has products."
Right. So, so here are some of so we asked them to put together a little group of products specifically for all of you folks. And like we're not affiliates of these folks. We're not making any money. We're just trying to get you the stuff you need to run your stores effectively and efficiently. So here are the products that Todd was talking about, and one is called Sanitize, and it's this green one, right, Todd? Am I right?
Correct.
And this red one over here, this one is the disinfectant, and you can use this one at the end of the day. So you get to that 100% disinfectant level on those high touch points.
And
yes?
I love the name TB Side Quat. If you don't want to get after an organic low soil load with that.
So you want to
I'm
talk.
sorry. I'm in a silly mood this afternoon.
Yep,
Tom. I
yep.
apologize.
So you want to give us a quick rundown on these two, and then I want to talk about the hand wash and the hand sanitizers too.
Yeah, so like we said earlier, the Sanitize, that is your throughout the day, your peace of mind product that is reducing the level of bacteria within an environment, keeping it at a safe level. So we're knocking down that bug count, if you will. And then the TB Side Quat is your more aggressive, put on gloves and goggles. We want to have our PPE on. And we want to be cautious of what we use a product like that on. It does have a higher pH, which is what gives it more of its killing capability.
Yeah.
So you want to think of this product on the level of like a Fantastic or a 409. It's an aggressive cleaner. So we always tell people to pre-test surfaces to make sure they are resistant to that kind of pH.
Yeah, good. But I love that you've got this one that you can use safely throughout the day, which I think is fantastic. And this one for at night.
I do have a question. When you talked about sanitizer, you talked about bacteria, and not to get technical, but is there a difference between a bacteria and a virus? And when you say knock down the bacteria?
Yeah, so I'm using the bacteria term kind of loosely, but
Yeah.
there is a
That's
difference.
what I just thought I'd ask. Yeah.
Yeah,
Germs.
Germs.
Germs. All right. So these other two I think are really cool. And we're going to get some of these guys for Whiz Bang training, I think. One is a hand wash and one is a hand sanitizer that you can mount like at your front door for your customers to use, behind the counter, in the stock rooms for your employees to use. And I thought this was a really great item that you guys would be really interested in getting.
Think about that. You could put that sanitizer right, between the stock room and the floor, right there at the register. So, people can just regularly just keep their hands clean.
Yeah, I thought that was great. Anything you wanted to particularly say about this one?
So a couple things regarding both products. The footprint on this product is really nice. It's roughly 3 inches, I'm going to guess. So it's very versatile where you can place that.
Oh, that's
product.
nice.
The other unique feature of this program, the cartridge is the dispenser. So right now in our industry, dispensers are hard to come by. So our trigger sprayers, so our spray bottles, a lot of, it's like the toilet paper, if you will.
Right.
It's
But
everything.
you have inventory on all these products right now, yeah?
These 4 products, yes, we do.
Good.
Okay, that's awesome.
So these 2 skincare products, you have a very small bracket that you mount to the surface where you want to mount the dispenser, and then the cartridge just snaps onto that bracket.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Good.
Cool. Excellent. And then the Renew Supplies people also added some masks, face masks. I thought that was a pretty good thing to put on here. And some people on the last community forum were talking about face guards as a way so that your employees, people could still see your employees' faces. So we had them add this to the page for you guys just as an availability place. Now, Todd, I think these prices are the retail prices, and if people register, they'll get to see the lower prices for Whiz Bang training. Is that correct?
I think we're looking at the pricing right here.
Okay, we're looking at the
But
logged
even
in.
so, when you look at this, those prices are very, very
they're
reasonable
really
for
good.
industrial.
Like-
It's not $43 a bottle.
Like it's
Right.
12 bottles for $43. I think that's a great deal.
Is that correct? Is it 43
Yes.
for the 12? Okay.
Yep.
So,
And the 32-ounce bottle, which is way more than you get in the grocery store.
yeah. So anyway, but that's absolutely awesome. And,
Yep.
like I said, a couple people mentioned they can't find anything. So these are real deal industrial strength products that you can feel confident in.
Yeah.
So that's why we're so
it's-
happy to be able to bring this.
It's renewsupplies.com, RENU supplies.com /whizbang-products. I don't know if you can see it right there. Whizbang-products, renewsupplies.com, whizbang-products. So when you go and you get there, I don't think you'll see those lower prices. You're going to have to register. So if you click register, and then you'll see right here at the top, if you click Whiz Bang when you
We're number
register,
one,
I know.
ahead of industry.
I know. If you click Whiz Bang right here, then you'll get the lower prices on those products. So again, you've got to click on the register and then create your account. Just put your because if you're going to buy the product, you have to create an account. Click on Whiz Bang and then you'll see the lower prices. So that's great. Just real quickly, Todd, before we sign off with you and have our other guests come on. One of the things that I loved about your products was that you have a whole training program in addition. So when people buy their products from you, you actually have an amazing, I went through and I got certified on post-pandemic cleaning and disinfecting.
All right.
So you
It
can,
appears as if we're frozen. I'm going to go see what I can find out.
okay. You know, it's really fantastic because the training program works extremely, extremely well. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Maybe that's what the problem is. So the training program is absolutely fantastic, super easy. You can go in and do it and you take your quiz. It's very much like the Retail Sales Academy, folks, if you have that. And then you and your people can get certified in office cleaning, in restroom cleaning, in post-pandemic disinfecting and cleaning. What are the other things that you can get? I can't remember. Oh, bloodborne pathogens. I think there were like 6 different training lessons that you could get, and you could track and see. Is everything okay?
Yeah. They're checking into it. Maybe we can chat Aubrey.
Everything's fine.
Oh, everything's fine now?
I think I was just sharing my screen, which was causing the problem. Still.
I just need to walk away and fix the problem.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, sorry. So Todd, you want to just talk a little bit about that training program that you have available?
Yeah, you covered it pretty well there. So
okay. Well, I took the lesson, so I
you are certified.
I was really impressed. I thought it was really great. Great training.
It's a tool that we offer to our customers. So if you're purchasing product, then I think the way we probably want to do this is have them reach back out to you, and then we can get that set up for them. And so the courses basically have about a 20-minute video, and then there's about a 20 question true or false afterwards, just to give validity, to make sure that we're absorbing the information. Again, we're keeping it simple. The idea is to build a program that everybody's doing the same process.
Yeah,
got it.
I loved it. I thought it was really great. I took it, I passed, so I'm certified now.
We're a little concerned about Bob.
Yeah, not Bob. He's going to still remain.
Now she can clean the house, right?
High soil load over
That's
here.
right. High organic
Careful.
soil load. That's all I need to know.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
So yeah, anyway, that's great. And the one last thing that I thought you guys offered that was really cool for some of our store owners, if you've got multiple locations, these guys at Spartan have what's it called? CompuCloud. What's it called again?
We call it CompuClean.
CompuClean.
Yep.
And there's a quality assurance portion of their CompuClean program where you can assign certain steps to be done during the day. It's all in the cloud, which is why I was thinking CompuCloud. But like if you're the owner and you've got 7 stores, you can log in at any time and watch your people going through your cleaning and disinfecting protocols.
Just like the Retail Sales Academy.
Well, it's like, you know what it is? It's like if you have a checklist in your store, but you can check from the cloud to make sure that people are doing it. So CompuClean, another really cool thing that you guys offer at Spartan. So if anybody's interested in that, you can let me know and I'll get you in touch with Todd and he can hook you up. So
Todd, just want to say thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you being here. We appreciate your time. We work really hard to get our community the best possible information. And I think you and Susan delivered strong here,
Well,
so
good.
thank you very, very much.
I thought it was great.
You're welcome. Thank you.
She was so excited. She was like, "Oh, I found the guy!" So, and you certainly delivered. So, thank you.
Real quickly, a couple questions. Are these products available in Canada?
Some are. I'll have to check.
Okay, good question.
Oh, and
Canada has their own EPA program, so it gets a little dicey.
Yep. So one question about using the hand sanitizer for around dogs and cats. Is there any safety issues using it on your hands and then touching your dogs and
no,
cats?
or their dog chews and things.
Yeah, dog chews, dog
toys.
phones, stuff like that? You know anything?
It should be fine.
Oh, good.
The product is, it's not an alcohol base.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So think about it. It's very much like a food grade. It's not food grade, but it's at a level that would be safe. You wouldn't want to drink it, but if they,
Good to know.
All right.
Don't
Right.
drink the hand
no
sanitizer.
ideas, Bob.
Okay,
Good.
so that's great. So that it would be safer around pets.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if you use the product properly, you're going to work it into the skin.
Yeah.
Till it's dry. So yeah.
Okay,
Good.
that's good.
Great.
Ginny asks, what's the difference between the two hand sanitizers? It's actually one is a soap, like for
Correct.
washing your hands, and one is a
Yes.
sanitizer. So one would be in the bathroom at a sink, and one would be a sanitizer, Ginny. Great. All right, Todd, thank you so much. I
Todd.
don't want to keep you any
Yeah,
longer.
we appreciate your time. Really, really
Thank
do.
you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Good job,
Absolutely.
man.
Thank you so
All
much.
right. See you
Have a
later.
great day.
Okay.
you
Thank
too.
you. Bye-bye.
All right, and we are going to, we've got our next guest up, and I'm gonna let her join our Zoom call here.
All right. This is
And-
great, you guys.
Yeah. So here we have Dr. Linda Lee. Hi, Linda. Hi, Linda. Hi. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am
Good.
wonderful.
So-
Linda's joining us from Texas, and she is the chief medical officer for a company called UV Angel. And we're going to be talking about UV. We're going to be talking with Linda about UV light sanitation and how you can and can't use UV light to kill the coronavirus germs, and how it's most effective and how it's not effective, and all those kinds of great questions, right, Linda?
So thank you for being here, Linda.
Absolutely.
There is a challenge for you, though. On the last, our last guest was talking about chemical cleaners, and I learned the term organic soil load. So I'm counting on you to give me some term that will make me smarter by the time we're done.
Well, fortunately, Bob, I watched your last guest who did a really nice job. And so hopefully I can exceed your expectations.
All right, there you go.
Good.
All
good,
right,
good.
wonderful. Well, thank you for being here, Linda. Really appreciate it.
So Linda and I had a chance to chat earlier too, and just in the very brief time that we were able to talk together, I learned a bunch of really fascinating things about UV light and how it works and how it might not work, and you know, how it's set up. So maybe I'm just going to throw it over to you just to kind of give us like a primer, like the beginnings of what's it good for, what is it not good for, how does it work?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, you can certainly have it pop up on your computer about every 15 minutes
Yep.
with a handheld wand or some magical device that's
Yes.
going to cure things. We've
Yeah.
certainly heard the president talk about it and its effectiveness. So one of the things that we do know about UV is it's been around for a long, long time. And if you're old, you might remember visiting your grandma or somebody in a TB sanatorium, and they had UV lights everywhere. And those UV lights were really used to control tuberculosis.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Like in one of the previous pandemics.
exactly.
Wow. So
Yep.
this is like throwback technology.
This is the science that history's forgotten. And so what happened is that after World War II, we started developing a lot of antibiotics, and we came into the better living through chemistry era. And so a lot of pharmaceuticals. And if you've ever listened to any of Dr. Fauci's conversations around joining infectious diseases in the 50s and 60s, when it was declared by CDC that all diseases were going to be cured by antibiotics, it was kind of scary for him because it's like, well, why am I going into infectious diseases? Well, we found that better living through chemistry in a lot of instances may have not have done everything we had hoped it would do. We saw that with DDT and malaria and mosquitoes. We saw that with chemicals that ultimately hurt people in Love Canal and all of this stuff. And so what we found is that maybe all these technologies have a place in the world to coexist.
I love
there's-
that.
That there's not just one technology for us to protect ourselves.
Yes.
And that our technology, for instance, the one that was forgotten by science, we know that as particularly, let's use antibiotics, we started to develop resistant pathogens, what we call superbugs. And so in our technology, we don't necessarily have that occurring because UV light has been around for years and years and years. And yet we know of very few pathogens giving the right dose and the right exposure that are going to be resistant to UV light. So that's why the pop-up wand becomes pretty important, because UV light works on intensity of the light and the surface you're trying to treat. So if you think about it with a flashlight, and if I could be a flashlight and I walk up against a wall, as I get closer, what happens to the light beam?
Yeah, it gets smaller, but more
It's
intense.
smaller and more intense. As I walk back, it gets very broad and not as intense. Well,
Mhm.
that's the way UV works, is that the closer you can bring the pathogen to the UV, the more likely you are to be able to treat it. And we don't kill it. It's not killing pathogens the way, say, the chemicals and the soil loading. It's not killing it. What it's doing is it's interrupting the DNA and the RNA of the pathogen. And so what happens is it can't reproduce. And if it can't
Oh,
reproduce,
well, that's fascinating.
right. So when if you listen to any of the coronavirus briefings, they talked about how reducing the level of pathogen reduces the amount of exposure. Well, if I've got a pathogen and it relies on reproducing to make enough pathogens to make me sick, if I
Yeah.
interrupt that and it can't reproduce, it eventually dies.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so that's the way it works. It's totally different than Todd and what he was explaining
And
on
I
the process.
and I love your idea about like an appropriate place for the chemical and the appropriate place for the UV.
Right. So if you can think about it, and I'll talk about our products because we're Western Michigan based and we're not a huge business, and we deal with all sorts of industries and all sorts of people. And right now we're doing a lot of getting businesses open.
Yeah.
I don't like the return to work because many people have been working.
Yeah.
They're just returning to an office, or they're just returning to a store, or they're just returning to a restaurant. It's not like they haven't been working. They might not have been paid, but they've been working.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, so in getting back to an office or getting back to a store setting, we want to make people feel safe. And in some cases, as some of the previous participants were saying, is that, how am I going to clean my dog food toys with this? And how am I going to, what about clothing and all about this stuff?
Yeah, soft goods are a real question mark.
Soft goods are a real
everybody.
question. But we also know the good news is that most viruses are not living for long periods of time on soft goods.
Yep.
And most people, if they're not shedding virus, are not leaving it all over clothes. So it's not coming out of your skin. It's either in the air or it's in droplets. So there's
If you're
two ways
sneezing on it.
Yep, there's two ways of transmission. One is a kind of interesting term called droplet nuclei. And
I
that's
gotta remember that one.
that's a big
that's-
term that you want to
That's
use at the
Bob's
next
term.
party you go to, because that's going to make you sound really smart. Hey, did you look at your droplet nuclei? But what happens is when you cough or when you sneeze, and you've seen pictures of this, the really heavy, big particles fall to the surfaces. So you've seen that where the sneeze goes out really far and the really heavy particles, big ones, fall to the surface. That might have a lot of moisture or mucus or things like that. So now you've contaminated a surface and you're going to touch that, and that's considered high touch contamination. the buttons on the buttons in your store, or
Yeah.
the computer keyboard, or the thing you're using for your credit card reader. That's droplet nuclei spread. Transmission from touch to touch to touch, high touch transmission, the stuff that Todd was talking about.
Exactly.
Now, these teeny tiny particles that go off in space and eventually they land like a snow globe. So we shake up a snow globe and everything is in the air. Well, when we stop that turbulence, it falls to the surface. Now it becomes a touch pathogen. So
that sounds scary, Linda.
well, and
You're
that's
saying
why
it's everywhere.
well, and that's why people are afraid to go to their store.
Yeah,
Right.
Because
right,
they
exactly.
feel it. Right. So the important thing is that you want to manage the air and you want to manage the surface. So in the case of the surface, you've talked to treating with chemicals and wiping it down, and chemicals have a lot of residual and they last in the environment and so on and so forth. And it's because of that they can residually clean.
Yes.
But with UV, it doesn't. It's either on or it's off.
Okay.
And so in our products, we have what are called engineered environmental products. So let's take our air product. It installs in the ceiling like a light fixture,
Okay.
and you install it in the ceiling. And what we do is within this light fixture, we hide a UVC bulb. And so
Okay.
this UVC bulb is hidden in a chamber that uses high intensity UVC, but doesn't expose people, because that's why they stopped using UVC, was that you're killing microbiology. You can imagine if you're exposing your skin to it, you're killing microbiology.
Yeah, that's
like-
I was wondering about that with the wand things that people are talking
Exactly. Well, and you have to hold that wand there. So you can imagine you got this little keyboard and you got to hold this wand there. People can't wash their hands for 20 seconds. You can imagine holding this wand 6 inches from this keyboard for 20 seconds. No matter how many times you have to sing happy birthday to do that.
about.
So it becomes impractical for people to use. So ours, in our air product, we put it in the ceiling. You don't turn it on. You don't do anything. It runs 24/7, 365, exposes no one, and it continually treats the air in your store.
So all those little teeny droplets, instead of landing on the surfaces, get RNA, DNA interrupted by your UV light.
Correct.
Love it.
Correct. And so that's one method, and people poo-poo off people wearing masks, and and we have a mask order in Texas. The governor has said, if you can wear a mask, wear a mask, because what that does is all those little droplets we talked about collect in that mask. So then it doesn't get on the clothing you're trying to sell. And then those that do, because somebody takes the mask off to talk to their friend or whatever they do, and those get into the air, they're being treated by this unit. Now, it only treats what gets to the unit. So it's not like, even though we're 99.99% effective on viruses, bacteria, and fungus, it has to get to the light. So all of these steps working together is what keeps us safe.
I love it.
And
like
so we
layering
have-
the protection.
Exactly. And with our products, we actually have a marketing campaign, and our marketing manager is listening. But we have a marketing campaign to help people. We call it Look Up. And so what people do is they put these little signs in their window that say, "Look up, we're protecting the air." And so with cleaning, I could tell you to clean every time somebody touches something, but no one on this call is going to tell me what they do for the air, because they did nothing for the air.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what people are afraid of. It's a respiratory virus, just like influenza, just like measles, and so if you're going to deal with a respiratory virus, and as a doctor, I deal with these things all the time. If you're dealing with a respiratory virus, I work in public health as my normal job. And if you're dealing with that, cleaning surfaces are going to help, because remember our little snow globe? It's eventually going to fall. The particle is going to be heavier than air, and it's going to fall to a surface. But in that time, when you're sitting there conversing with your customer, or they're talking to other people in the store, those particles are going everywhere. So the idea of socially distancing, the idea of wearing a mask, the idea of using all of these interventions, so our air product, the cleaners, become important in a holistic approach to the environment.
I
And
love
some
it.
people, quite frankly, are afraid to use chemicals. Maybe they have a chemical sensitivity.
Sure.
Maybe
A lot of
they,
people.
there's a reason they can't.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's not a one size fits all for everything.
Yeah.
And,
That's great.
and so we have to work together sort of in this multimodal interface with the environment and say, we're going to do the best we can to protect our customers and, quite frankly, ourselves and our staff.
Yeah,
Because you may
sure.
have a business owner who's had cancer, or you may have a business owner, and they're afraid to open up.
Yeah.
They're afraid that they're trying to manage their own health. If
Exactly.
you're, age is a risk factor. There's lots of risk factors to this virus, this coronavirus.
This is
Yes.
great.
But coronaviruses exist normally. They cause colds normally. They
Yeah.
don't mutate into this virus. But we know a lot about this virus, and we can protect ourselves from it.
Yeah. So I have a great question from one of our listeners right now. Her name is Vicky, and her question is, what can we do to clean our keyboards on our point of sale systems?
Well, that's even a great question. So we talked about the chemicals, certainly can do that. UV Angel, the company that I work for, does have a product called the UV Angel Adapt. And that product actually goes on to point of sale buttons. And what it does is that after the customer interfaces with the point of sale, the button, the keyboard, whatever, then what happens is it turns on a little light onto that keyboard, and then it treats that keyboard. The
Very
interesting,
cool.
interesting thing about this is that it's 100% engineered. It's automatic. So when the person who's doing the sales is doing all the other things they have to do, this is cleaning automatically.
They don't have to remember to get out their disinfectant and wipe it down. It just happens as soon as they're done typing.
Exactly. And then
Love
when
it.
the person walks away, so it actually senses that there's a hand there and it shuts off. Now, this is very different than the UV that's in the ceiling, because this is low intensity UV. It's meant to come on as soon as a person walks, treat the keyboard, and then the keyboard, quite frankly, is treated. Now, it's not going to replace, I think what he talked about was soil. So at different times of the day, when things are slow or you're not crazy busy, you may want to wipe these off because you still want to remove soil.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Soil is
So
sort of
again,
the big,
it's that combo approach.
it's that big equalizer. Yep. Because what happens is the microbes like to hide in these little particles. So they're like little hitchhikers, as you heard Todd talk about,
Mhm.
and they hide in particles. They hide in dust particles. They hide in water particles. They hide in Cheeto. They hide in all the kind of stuff that's in your hands. And so
Sure.
what you have to do is you have to work together to make this happen. And
That
so
is just that's great.
I love, so it is hand washing, and it is UV, and it is sanitizing with chemicals. It's all of these things together.
and stay home if you're sick.
And wear a
don't
mask.
expose people.
Yeah.
And we know there are super spreaders. There's super spreaders with all diseases. Those are people who are asymptomatic, and we have between 20 and 38% of the population that's asymptomatic. So just talking to you, it exposes you.
Yeah.
And so what we really want people to do is that you're the only one who can protect yourself, but you show a lot of respect for your neighbors, for your friends, for your store owner if you wear a mask. It's not a this is my right. It's a respect thing, that I respect you because I don't know if I'm carrying this disease.
Yeah.
I know I'm not sick, or I would have stayed home, but I don't know if I'm carrying this disease. So I'm doing my part to protect people. But I'm a public health practitioner. This is what I do every day.
Right.
That's your thing.
That's my
your
stick.
thing.
And
Yeah.
I believe in the science, but I also believe that people are afraid. And anything we can do to combine all of these things to protect ourselves and our neighbors. But I want the businesses to get open. I want them to feel that they can protect themselves too.
All right, so you've got the air thing that goes up in the ceiling, which I love, because I mean, what an amazing thing to be able to tell your customers, everybody, that like, look, we have this air sanitizing thing that's taking care of the
And
air.
a sign that says "Look up."
Yeah, look up. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, look up. Where
Good job,
Yeah.
marketing guy who's watching.
Yeah,
Excellent.
that's
I like
Meredith.
it.
Hey,
Plan.
shout out to Meredith.
Hey, good job, Meredith.
Meredith,
Yeah.
it's not marketing guy, marketing person. I
Person.
apologize.
Generic.
That's okay. Meredith's used to it.
Generic guy. So yeah, like I think that's great. And then I love the keyboard thing. Yeah, and you have a phone sanitizer too, don't you?
Yeah, and that's actually a phone sanitizer / charger. So
Oh.
you can sit it in. It was developed for operating rooms so that surgeons and people like that,
That's all right.
surgeons and people like that could charge their phones and look at them at the same time.
And
That's
still and have it
interesting.
being
And clean them.
sanitized.
Yep.
So, so I just want to back up for just a second. So here's the story of how we sort of met. So in November, we had our company's 20th anniversary party. And so, of course, we went around the building where our office building, and we invited all of our neighbors. Well, we didn't even know about you guys in the basement. All of a sudden, hey, there's a company in the basement.
We're in the
So,
basement.
oh, well.
There's a reason.
Yeah. So we went down to the basement, and when we introduced ourselves and walked around and did all of that, when it was done, all of us were walking upstairs and going, that is so
So
interesting,
cool.
because most of your applications are medical applications. But then when we started thinking, Susan in particular started thinking about safety, it was like, oh, and then, the whole UV light thing. So, and here we are. And I think it's absolutely great, Linda. You've been fascinating.
So one of the big questions that keeps coming up, well, two questions. So I'm going to combine them kind of into one, and you can see how you can take them. So like one of the big questions and problems that people have in a store setting is, what do I do with soft goods? Like my clothing, balls of yarn, fabric, the curtains on my dressing room. Are there any UV light applications that help with that? And also cash, like handling the cash and cleaning the cash. Are there UV light applications that work for that? I don't know if there are or not.
Well, as I said, people go to jail for laundering cash, but cash is one of the biggest interesting. If you test any cash just right now, cash has the highest level of what I like to call fecal veneer. In other words, there are so many fecal colonies on that cash.
Word for you there.
Fecal veneer. I'm going to stay
Fecal
away.
veneer. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
And so no one has laundered cash up to this point, but I always recommend don't touch the cash and put your hands in your mouth without a pandemic. It's just not a good thing.
Yeah.
So no, we do have products that go into a drawer, and you can put all your cash in the drawer and it irradiates in a drawer.
I love it.
We do have products like that. We have products that act like a little microwave, and you put it in there and it treats it. But I go back to what I originally said. The way this virus is transmitted, we'll talk about this virus. I'll be happy to talk about anything, but we'll stick to this virus.
Okay.
Is that people are either breathing, coughing, or sneezing. You're not shedding it off your skin. You're not shedding it from your scalp. It's not, even though people are shedding 37 million bacteria an hour off your body normally,
Ew.
this is not being shed that way. And so if you have it on your clothes and you go into a store, unless you're doing this with your clothes, it's not jumping off of your clothes. So if you're asking your customers, especially if you're soft goods, to wear a mask, they're actually protecting your product. So however you feel about that, whatever, you're protecting your
Yep.
product and you're protecting the next person who touches it. We know that there's not a long life for this virus just in general under ideal conditions. That survives much better on cardboard and metal, like a stainless steel counter.
Yep.
We know it stays in the air for up to 3 hours, could be more with really tiny particles. But if you notice, that's all still coming out of your mouth or your nose. And so wearing a mask is, if you're asking your patrons to wear a mask, you're also protecting your goods. If you don't do that, there's not a real good way, because you sure don't want to spray bleach on your products.
Can't do that.
To clean it. There's not a real good way to do that. Even with any kind of cleaner, you could UV it, you could take a handheld UV, but you can imagine if you have to do this for a minute or so with literally everything someone touched. So your best protection as a soft goods store owner, or any store owner, quite frankly,
Is light.
The light, but to ask people to wear a mask.
Yeah.
The light is going to help when you're communicating with that person, or let's say that person is trying on something and has to remove their mask or takes off their mask. It's going to help the person who comes in and just wants to make a payment on a bill or get a cup of coffee. Those air units are going to be just fine. But if you've got a lot of soft goods and you're trying to deal with even carpets, as you remember Todd mentioned, it's really difficult. And we know that every footstep on a carpet is proven to generate 100,000 particles into the air, into your breathing zone.
Life sounds very scary in your world, Linda. I don't know.
Yeah, you should have heard me before this pandemic. I was one mutation away from the end of the world, and then it happened. But anyway, so it's really important to practice these things as much as it's not to get into how you feel about that, but you're protecting your goods if you ask people to wear a mask. You're protecting yourself, because again, how does the virus transmit? It transmits because you're breathing, talking, sneezing, coughing, doing something that is expelling this virus. And so if you can mitigate that, and then to the extent you can clean things and you can treat the air, you can help to mitigate the transfer or the spread.
I love it.
And that's what you want to do. We're all familiar with elementary school, break the fire triangle, take anyone. Well, in disease transmission, it's exactly the same thing. If I can not have very much virus in the air, I don't transmit it. If I'm not susceptible, I don't transmit it. If I protect myself, I don't catch it. Doing any number of these things prevents this disease transmission. And so as a store owner, you want to protect your product and your customers and yourself.
Love it. That's great.
That is
great
absolutely
stuff.
that is great stuff.
So I'm gonna share my screen one more time here, and just gonna show you one more. UV Angel is the name of Linda's company. They are an American West Michigan company.
Downstairs.
They actually
In
have
the basement.
Downstairs in the basement.
They have offices in the same building as Whiz Bang Training, which is how we met these folks. And they primarily do products for the healthcare industry, but their products do work in, if you look here, they've got a little list, and their retail is listed right there on the industries that they work with. But so uvangel.com. And if you are interested in any of these, I think what Doug said was to fill out this contact form, and they'll get back to you, tell them what you might be interested in. Or of course, you can always call or send an email to info@UVAngel, or call the number to ask any of your questions. So if you're interested in these UV light safe, because I do get worried about the UVC wands, because they can hurt people. Am I right, Linda?
Yeah, and again, it goes back to what I said. It's about exposure time. So one doing this over your keyboard is going to do nothing.
Yeah.
If you're holding it, 3 feet away, it's going to do nothing. You really have to get it. And that's where our systems are engineered by intensity, by distance. And oh, by the way, we have lots of peer-reviewed papers. We have laboratory studies. We have validation because we sell to the healthcare community normally.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's about validation. It's about how effective it is, how many colony forming units there were, and how many we killed. I mean, we could get into some really geeky stuff, but that's probably not necessary for today.
So
But
I don't know if you guys can all hear the dinging on my computer right now. That's our team who's watching the live stream. They're all sending me messages going, we want that for the office. Are we getting that for our office? We want to have that.
I thought you were going to tell me that's the hook to say I've already talked too long.
No, both you and Todd, this has been such a fascinating community forum for me. I've just been, it's.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Linda, because, in our community, I mean, there has been, and it's been in the last few days as everything is opening up, there's just been so much talk about whether to wear masks. And now there's politics around wearing masks.
Right.
And so there's just been a lot of conversation. And one of the things that we try to do is bring clarity to the conversation. So, we don't want to bring constitutional rights into the conversation or your political persuasion into the conversation, but we do want to bring rational thought, accurate thinking. And both you and Todd really brought some accurate thinking and some great insights into, yes, what the thing that I love that you said is you're protecting your goods.
Yeah.
And so no matter how you feel about it, protecting your goods, because one thing that would happen if a retail store if there's an outbreak and it's traced to a retail store, that's a really bad look. That's a bad piece of publicity. So
that's a bad look, as our kids would say.
And so this whole idea for protecting your store, I think, will really resonate with some of our clients who are thinking about not wearing masks, not making their customers wear masks. And, we believe that it's good and proper and correct, but it's not our job to tell people what to do. But this adds a whole nother layer of persuasion into, hey, we should all wear masks.
Yeah, great question here from Cherie for you, Linda. She says, how many square feet will that in the ceiling light cover?
We usually talk in both cubic feet and square feet. So it's usually 1 per 100 square feet or 1 per 800 cubic feet. So 10 by 10 by 8. So in a small store, you might have 2 of these. We have ones without lights and with lights. So if you just want to match your ceiling tile, you could put one in with no light.
Oh, okay, interesting.
And the idea behind it is
regular light plus the UV light.
Right. So let's say you take out one of your existing lights. They fit really well in a drop ceiling or a hard ceiling. But we rule of thumb is square footage. And what you're doing in many stores, because under the building codes, retail stores are business occupancies. They have very little air exchanges required in a retail store. So what this is doing is basically increasing your air exchanging, and it's increasing, for those of you who own stores, you know what a clean air delivery rate is. This is a clean air delivery rate. And so what we're doing is treating the air in that space. And when I was at MD Anderson, one of the things we studied very closely were bone marrow transplants and things like that. And the pathogens are actually brought into the store by people. They're not coming in from the outside and being delivered by your main package unit on the roof. They're coming in and they're being brought in by people. So you want to treat the air where it's being brought in by people. And so that becomes
right at the front door.
Right at the front door. So to what you were saying, basically, Bob, is that at the end of the day, if there is an outbreak, you want to be able to say, look at all the things I did to protect this. That person could have got it anywhere,
Yeah.
But as a responsible person, here's what I did.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think that all of these things add to the credibility of your store. Look up, look at what we're doing with this. You can see these actual things to protect you. And
Yeah.
I agree 100% with what you said with the mask. My wearing a mask is that I'm showing respect for you and your goods,
Right.
because I don't know if I'm sick.
Right.
I know I don't feel sick,
Right.
Yeah.
but I really think that on soft goods, that's the best way to protect your product.
Yeah. Good.
That's great.
All right. Great info. We really super appreciate it.
Oh man, so much. I found it so interesting. Susan's looking to see the
Other
questions.
questions. Can the virus live on plants? What about greenhouse
Oh,
workers?
that's a good question.
Yeah, it can definitely live on plants. It can live on any surface. It's just how long it can live there. And so,
okay.
yeah, again, on plants, there aren't a lot of plants been studied, but if it's in the air at least 3 hours, it's probably at least 3 hours. Now,
Yeah.
your plants may already be being exposed to a UV band. So if it's indoor nursery, you're probably already exposing it to UVA or UVB, which also has effects on it. So most of the lighting spectrum between 100 nanometers and 400 nanometers have effect on microbiology.
Okay.
It
Good.
just so happens this spectrum is germicidal. So it has more of an effect faster.
Kill it.
So it's UVGI. No kill, interrupt.
Oh,
Interrupt.
Interrupt.
There you go.
That's why I wore my camo jacket, because we're fighting the germ today.
Exactly.
That's exactly why I wore it.
Wow. All
Yeah,
right.
do you like it?
That's
All
why I
right.
wore my gray shirt.
Well, Linda, thank you.
No.
Thank you
Oh,
so
okay.
much. Thank you so much. We've gone over our time with you already. You may have
Yes.
other calls that you need to get
Yes.
on. So
It-
I just wanted to say thank you so much. Appreciate it. If any of you guys have any other questions about the UV Angel products, go ahead and give them a call. Send it that contact form on their website, uvangel.com. Anything else?
Linda,
Super
thank you.
interesting.
Thank you so very
Lots
much.
of great info.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And you all have a safe day.
All right.
You
You
too.
too.
Okay,
All right.
bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. All
Okay,
right.
So let's.
Good info, you guys.
Wow. I thought that was awesome.
I told you, I learned so much just by chatting with these folks for such a short period of time. So,
Yeah. It did truly. I mean, I wasn't lying. Susan came back. She was like, "Oh, that's so interesting. This
I
is so
know.
great."
I
And
did
that was
not
when
know
you
any
were
of these
talking to Todd, and
Yeah.
then Linda. I
Yeah.
thought that whole thing was fascinating. Also, and I think that for me anyway, we're all dealing with so much information, and and different political perspectives that are leading to information not being distorted. I don't think that's the right word, but I just really felt for me, and I hope for you, that I got a good bead on
well, and to me, it's not even about different political perspective. It's like, your second cousin's uncle on Facebook. Puts up a meme.
Right.
And like, I wanted to bring actual experts in for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed that.
Yes.
And learned a lot.
Yes.
So,
And Susan, thank you very much for doing a great
Yeah.
job putting this together.
You're welcome.
All I did was show up and make jokes. But organic soil load, I'm all over it. Tune into the podcast tomorrow. I'm gonna be dropping that stuff all day long. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. We're always so honored that you give us some of your time. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.